right, let's get into this Flus conversation. There were two reports, major sarcastic quotes on that, which is not the fault of the reporters as much as it was the fault of how they were then framed on social media. Look, including this show, we get put in situations where, and I've been both over the course of my career, where I'm hardcore reporting on things and then being asked to sit here and give opinions on stuff like that.
Right.
And the Ian Rappaports, the Adam Schefters, in this case, Jeremy Fowler's involved. They get asked to go on these shows and do this all the time. And I get it. If you have not been to like journalism school and you're just a consumer of the content, it can get confusing sometimes. And I totally agree that it is.
I have not been to journalism school.
It's in your future. We're sending you after the season.
Was there drinking makers in the journalism school?
There was a class on men's nipples.
Yeah. There was plenty of drinking makers when I was in journalism school. I will say that at the University of Wisconsin.
Okay.
Sorry to just jump ahead, Hunter Hoge, and tell Greg that that's been the plan since about week 2 that we're going to send you to journalism school after the season.
Shit.
Might as well send to Northwestern.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I need to go too, but
Gary Ross is coming with me.
There we go. Okay, continue on. Let's get back to Flus.
So there was an aggregated tweet going around yesterday in the morning on Fields and about how Justin Fields has played his way into this being a tougher decision. And it was presented like it was
Jeremy Fowler. It
was presented in a way like Jeremy Fowler was reporting like he had gotten intel from like the Bears telling them this. And like then you go back and you watch the actual video and it's like, no, Jeremy Fowler's just kind of giving his opinion and looking at the whole season and being like, this is not a tough decision. He literally didn't say anything different than any of us have said on this show or any of show in Chicago for a long time or in Greg Braggs' Twitter spaces. And so, like, to me, that was a complete nothing. Like, there's no report here. There's no, like, the Bears are considering keeping Justin Fields, which they probably are, but it's not like he was told, oh, they're seriously, like, debate, So, whatever. Then, last night, similar thing happens, and this was funny because it was actually put out by the NFL Network. And it was basically like, I don't have the exact tweet in front of me. I should have had it prepared. But it was around the NFL Twitter account, and it was per Ian Rappaport, Matt Eberflus will return as Bears head coach in 2024.
Right.
And you go back and watch what Ian Rappaport actually said. He did not say that.
He didn't say it at all.
Similar thing, he looked at everything and he was like, there's certainly momentum building here towards Matt Eberflus keeping his job. Which, no shit. Yes, they're 6-5 in their last 11. They've won 4 straight home games. The defense is a lot better. Like, we all know this. So that, in my opinion, was incredibly confusing and odd for the Around the NFL Twitter account to put that out, and it's on the screen right now.
So the exact phrasing, there was a few paragraphs, the ones that stood out to me. The defense in particular has gotten better with Eberflus taking over play calling, a role he likely retain in 2024. It hasn't been all smooth. Defensive coordinator Alan Williams resigned under mysterious circumstances. Running backs coach David Walker was fired. Quarterback Justin Fields' play has remained uneven, setting the stage for another major offseason decision by the organization. And then the other part, the Bears have a new team president, Kevin Warren, who was hired to work on the team's new stadium, but also has a say in the football matters. He wasn't on staff when Eberflus was hired 2 years ago, making him a wild card in the final evaluation process.
So,
which is a bold comment right there, that you really know that he's involved like that, but okay. I mean, are we sure?
You know that, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
100%, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we feel confident about that, but do we know for sure?
We really think that? Do you really think that
until
Kevin
he
Warren's going to go in there like,
it,
hey,
do
dude,
we know for sure?
Hey, dude, I know you.
Kevin Warren has the power to change the head coach if he wants to. That's the power structure
as
at
he should,
Household, and we know what that is.
No, I understand that part of it. I'm just like that he would actually flex like that. If Ryan Poles wanted to keep Flus, do you think that and Kevin didn't? This is more of a guess, I'm assuming, but would he actually disempower his GM and say, I want this
I think
guy?
If Kevin Warren was completely convinced that Matt Eberflus was not should not be the head coach for 2024, yes, he would flex that power.
Okay.
I would be shocked, though, if he feels that way.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay.
But I just wanted to set the stage of this whole conversation. I want everyone to understand that there was not an actual confirmation that Matt Eberflus is coming back next year. When I took the kids, as a family, went to go see this new movie out, Migration, new kids movie.
The Ducks.
Give it 2.5
How many
stars.
quacks would you give it?
I'd give it 2 out of 5 quacks.
But how many honks?
It was fine. It was fine.
That's a goose.
But there's some really good kids movies out there, like Secret Life of Pets, Cars, like stuff where like the references are
They're
like
scratching at the scraping at the bottom of the barrel.
This was whatever.
I was excited. I like Kumail Nanjiani, who is one of the main.
Yeah,
guys.
and you can definitely his voice is very distinct, and like him being a duck was interesting.
Speaking of ducks, is Gutsy a duck? Lame duck?
Lame duck. Ooh.
Okay, well,
Hold on.
yeah, okay, maybe.
Thanks, Dad.
The point is, when this came across during the movie, and I got out of the movie, I'm like, oh, Rap Sheet must have gotten somebody at Hallis Hall to tell that Matt Eberflus has been informed that he's coming back. And my immediate thought was, well, this explains why he's been so jovial at the podium lately.
Right.
And he's joking about nicknames now and all this stuff. So it actually made a lot of sense to me. But then I'm like, before I react to this, I want to find what he exactly said. And then you go back and see it.
I was already overreacting to it.
Yeah, I know. And it's like he didn't – there's no confirmation here. So as long as we set that as the ground rules for this whole thing.
Can we do something different for just a second? Can you interview me like Ian Rappaport was interviewed and ask me if Matt Eberflus is coming back, or what if I think he's coming back?
Role play is definitely your kink.
I'm trying to drink my coffee over here. Come on.
Do you think Matt
Almost
Eberflus
got a
is coming
spit
back?
So that's an interesting question with a guy who last year was finished 3-14, and the Bears were the worst team in the NFL, which was at least somewhat by design. And then this year they've blown 3 games in the fourth quarter that would be impossible to blow, and but they did. And he's also had 2 assistant coaches fired that he hired for circumstances that have not been fully clear, but are not good. However, the Chicago Bears
terrible report.
The Chicago Bears social media account mic'd up the guy and then put out a video of him with a nickname for every single person on the team. They are actively promoting the head coach of the team. And I would like to think that the Bears, now being run by Kevin Warren, are an organization that has some level of symmetry of what they're doing. And every time the general manager talks about the head coach, he says something nice about the head coach. Right. When he's asked about players on the defense, he goes out of his way to bring in that the head coach has said something nice, has coached up the Jaquan Briskers of the world. So I think it is fairly obvious at this point that there is a lot of support organization-wide for the head coach, Matt Eberflus. So if you're asking me my opinion on whether he's staying, I'm going to tell you emphatically that yes, I do. I think that Matt Eberflus is going to be back.
Well, and Ryan Poles said...
And by the way, I know absolutely nothing, and that's my read of the tea leaves of what's going on, which is exactly what Ian Rappaport was asked to do.
To your point, Ryan Poles talked with Jeff Joniak this morning and said, we're identifying the right types of players. The coaches are doing a great job of developing them.
Right.
So another sign of approval with the coaches.
So
my question to you, Hoge, because you say, I thought maybe he got this from somebody in Hallis Hall. And as somebody that's, played this dance reporting, sometimes you're going to hear things and then you're going to put things out in the atmosphere because you have an educated, hearsay from things behind the scenes, but you're not going to say directly where it's coming from. So, that's my question to you. It does feel like he's talking to Ryan Poles, because if you remember when Justin Fields first came back, Ian Rappaport will also put out a report saying these are the things that Justin Fields needs to do to be the quarterback next year. And there was a list of them. 1 was consistency. 2 was how he would do in the 2-minute drill. 3 was finishing games. 4 was limiting turnovers. And it really felt like that report came from somebody. And now Ian Rappaport, he's obviously got a reputation that precedes him. So to then put this out yesterday, I go back to that report and I'm like, okay, he's clearly talking to somebody. That's how it felt to me.
Well, I'm sure he has sources inside the building. And you should have somebody inside every building. But It's irresponsible for me to guess who he's talking to.
Of course,
and I wouldn't
I'm
want
not
people
saying,
to do
I'm
that
not
to
saying,
me.
I'm not saying to do that, but it just does feel like it's not just him giving an opinion. It's him also, giving an opinion attached with
Right.
what
It's an informed opinion. It's an informed opinion. That's what it is. It's not a report that Matt Eberflus is 100% coming back.
Right,
or
he
has
said
been told.
expected. He didn't
Yes.
say official.
We're not debating that. I'm just making sure everyone knows that because your Twitter world, it was very obvious that people did not understand that last night at all. Yeah. And by the way, including many members of the media too that were chiming in on this whole thing. Yeah. Like he did not say Flus is 100% coming back. I just think that's important. Now, what I wanted to do this morning, and I put this out on Twitter this morning, was because there was a very strong reaction to this that he shouldn't be coming back, and I just wanted to actually I just feel like a lot of people decided week 4 that this guy should be fired. And that's the decision they made, and that's what they're sticking to. And that's fine if that's your opinion. Like, that's okay. But I just wanted to know the exact reasons. If you're somebody who does not think Matt Eberflus should come back next season, what are your specific reasons for why he should be fired? I got a bunch of responses, and I took, the 5 main ones, I would say, that I just wanted to address individually. Because I think if I am making one point through this exercise, is that I do not think it's as black and white as people want to make it out to be. I think you can poke holes in every argument for him to go, and probably poke holes in every argument for him to stay as well. And I think that's fine. But here's some of the top reasons. We can go through one by one. First one that I think is completely fair. Bad coordinator hires. Or just questionable coaching staff hires overall. Of course, referencing the fact that he had to, Alan Williams resigned. And in the Alan Williams case, this is a guy he's worked with for a long time. Whatever the reasons were there, if you want to say the head coach should have had a better idea of what was going on and that should have been avoided, I think that's fair. Now, the David Walker thing, should he have a better idea of maybe what this guy's reputation was around the league? Off the field, I think that's partially fair. I also do think it's unfair to expect, really in any job, that anyone's going to know every single detail of all of their employers' lives when they leave the building,
right,
in whatever job they're in. That's just completely unrealistic.
Unless they post them all on Twitter.
Unless they're brags and they put every moment on Twitter throughout the day.
If Jake knew all the skeletons in my closet, I probably wouldn't be hired.
Do you still need to be held accountable? Do you still need to be held accountable when bad things go wrong? Absolutely. But I think this idea that Flus should just be fired because he had 2 coaches leave the staff in the middle of the year is a little unfair. And I would also think, and this is what I think is going to happen with a lot of these points we bring up, lost his defensive coordinator, took over the defense, and made the defense a lot better.
Right.
Lost another position coach throughout the year, and while I do think the running backs have not been great, especially since David Walker got fired, they've weathered that storm too. So there's kind of 2 ways to look at that. But one of the ways that I look at it is there was not a team in the league dealing with more adversity week 3 when they're getting pummeled by the Chiefs. The Alan Williams thing had just gone through a crazy PR cycle. And
the Justin thing was also that week.
They get killed by the Chiefs. They blow the game against the Broncos. And I'm listing off a bunch of reasons why he should be fired. I get it. But now they're 6-5 in their last 11 since then. They've made tangible progress in many areas. So I'm just...
Lawrence is
does he not get credit for that?
Who's he beating?
That's
another thing on the list.
3 of the 6 wins are against the worst team in the NFL, second worst team in the NFL, and the 4th worst team in the NFL.
I think the biggest pushback right now is, to me, if I'm guessing, again, reading the tea leaves, to me it seems like the Flus is coming back.
Let's stop guessing. I just want to go through the reasons of the.
Yeah, let's.
But I think I
don't want to talk about what we think will happen. I want to talk about just the fans looking at this.
I understand, but I think the pushback from the fans is coming from that because they think that Flus is coming back and the quarterback is not coming back, and I think that's a main reason why you're getting this much pushback.
Let's hear the 4 other reasons.
Okay, yeah, because we're jumping ahead here a little bit. So obviously 3 horrible losses. 3 horrible losses.
Yes.
Braggs responded to my tweet with just 3rd and 15, which was a horrible call that he actually took responsibility for, by the way, which I appreciated.
That was his best responsibility moment of his Flus career.
And I would say, and you make the argument, only 1 quality win. I'm going to give him 1.5 quality wins because even though the Patriots were terrible, I think going into New England on Monday Night Football and beating Belichick the way they did was an impressive win.
Yeah,
so
it was fun. We had fun.
You know, but it's a half. It's a half.
That's 1.5 in 2 seasons.
Well, and then the other one that you're leaving out is
agreed with a horrible roster for the most part that is improving.
The other one you're leaving out is the 3 blown leads in games where 2 of which you had a 99% chance of winning in the fourth quarter, and the third one, the Browns, over 90% chance of winning in the fourth quarter.
I get it. Now, I think the context. What I'm doing here is not trying to make a defense for Flus to stay. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on a lot of these things so maybe people can understand where I think Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles are probably looking at this. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're looking at it completely wrong, and we'll find that out in a year or 2. But I'm just trying to have a more nuanced conversation about all this stuff.
I think he
But my point is those 3 losses, horrible losses, there's no doubt. If you're a coach in a position where you have Super Bowl expectations and you lose games like that, you probably should lose your job. But when you're a young team with still plenty of roster holes that is trying to learn how to finish games with a quarterback, don't get sensitive. It's an objective fact. The fourth quarter has been the quarterback's worst quarter throughout his career. When you dealt that hand, I'm not saying it's excusable, but what it might be is tolerable as long as you get over it. And there have been examples, as much as people want to point them out, and I get the games were not great, Carolina, Minnesota, whatever, they did finish some of these games in the fourth quarter, even last week, converting that first down and getting that field goal to ice the game against the Cardinals does count as a fourth quarter victory.
No, it's fair. They have made progress. They did turn the corner through a lot of adversity. They've kept the team together when they could have came apart at the seams at 0-4. They kept the team together last year. At the end of last year, they were battling their ass off. We gave Eberflus a lot of credit on this show last year at the end, how hard the team was fighting, even with the lack of talent. He's developing players well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Even the offensive line looks like it's starting to develop. You know, and so you're seeing the momentum building, especially when Montez Sweat comes here. And that's exciting. But I think losing those 3 games, you're not on a Super Bowl expectation, but then you're still on the hot seat next year. You have to prove that in situational moments you're going to come through because you're going to run into these close games next year, even if your roster is twice as good as it is this year.
But to Hoge's, to your point, you can understand, at least I think I can understand how Ryan Poles could look at that like, hey, man, he had them in position to win games that they really shouldn't be winning right now, and they were right there. And then in the end, they didn't execute, which he had his players put in the position to do so, and they just, for lack of a better way of putting it, shit the bed. So that's, yes, Flus has his part in it, but I'm not blowing out my head coach because of 3 games that we should have won. And in some cases, at least against the Lions, we're playing against a way better team who's a playoff team. I'm not gonna kill them for it.
And who does Poles identify as the problem in some of these games? Because like the Cleveland game, they essentially had 2 pick sixes, but the offense was mainly the reason they didn't win that game. The 3rd and 15 is what got our microscope because that was the pivotal moment.
Right.
But the offense was the reason they didn't win that game.
Right.
So if Poles is looking at this fairly across the board, he might look at it and say, okay, Eberflus isn't the biggest problem here. But again, going back to something you've said a month ago when I was like, hey, I just want to be in the hunt. I just want to like barely make the playoffs. And you were saying, well, you have to have a higher standard. And so that's my question for Ryan Poles. What is your standard here? Because is good enough enough for you? Because you might have 3 coaches, as we've talked about with Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and Jim Harbaugh, who just hired an agent that's known for NFL ties yet last night to be coming back to the NFL. So what is your standard? Because is good enough for you, or do you want to upgrade the position like we've seen other teams in the city do?
Now, and
Did you get to all the reasons?
no, I haven't.
Okay.
So, because the next one is one that I'm personally worried about, and that is just how completely unprepared they were to start the 2023 season.
Amen.
That one has me worried.
Amen.
Now, I will give Flus credit for turning it around, but that was a fucking joke the way they started the year.
Yep.
Like, to come out as flat as they did against the Packers was unacceptable. The mess at the end of the Bucs game, and that the Bucs are not a good team.
How they handled the Claypool thing throughout those 2 games.
Yeah, and so what is convince me that they're gonna come out next year different? That's what I want to know, and I don't have any tangible evidence. I have evidence they've gotten better, but to me, that was pretty concerning.
I think it's a fair concern, but I think the way Poles is looking at it is that, yes, that sucked, but also we got through it.
Yeah.
We made numerous moves to get through it, and as he said today on the pregame show, he's, they're holding out on their 1.6% chance. We're trying to win games at the end of the year here, and if it doesn't work out that we don't go to the playoffs, we want to carry that momentum into next year. So I think he's looking at it like, all right, bro, I didn't set you up in year 1. You didn't start out year 2 great, but you righted the ship, and you've got things moving in a positive direction. I think that's obvious. I am giving you year 3 with everything that I'm going to do this offseason, and it's put up or shut up for him.
All right, now two more quick things. That another one that came up, takes no responsibility and blames others. This was something that I ranted about a lot this year.
It was annoying.
And it was really starting to bother me. I do think he's gotten better. I don't know how that got to his head, or if someone said something to him about it or whatever, but he has gotten better, making it more of a we thing, and taking responsibility for that 3rd and 15 was a perfect example. But we have come a long way from that Chase Claypool mess. Because if I got to be honest, there's one thing that concerned me the most about his ability to be an NFL head coach and handle everything that comes with it. It was how he handled the Chase Claypool post-game press conference when he put it on Claypool for not being there, when in reality they told him not to be there. That's not, as much as Chase Claypool probably deserved to be thrown under the bus, you can't do that to your players and not have other players in the locker room question it. And so that one really concerned me. But again, he seems to have fixed this in different Flus now.
Well, and then the other part, too, with the Claypool thing, okay, that was the final blow. But reverse back to the week 1. As you said, not coming out prepared. Chase Claypool's not showing any effort, and you make him active week 2, and he made more mistakes in week 2. You had an opportunity there to set the tone of what an expectation for your players are, and instead you let him make you look bad 2 weeks in a row to the point where all of a sudden you're trading him another week.
And it goes
later.
back to training camp, which we talked about the day that we watched practice, and the way they let Claypool just like run around like a maniac, yelling at Tyreek Stevenson, and no one stepped in. I still find that as an enormous red flag.
So okay. Of everything we've named, of all the reasons, that one right there to me is the biggest. You have a diva wide receiver that you traded for who was called out by guys in the locker room. Your quarterback, your leader, the most professional face of the franchise called him out. And here he is treating a rookie who you just drafted like he's a complete punk, to the point that one of the coaches has got to sit there with Tyreek and tell him, don't respond, let him do his thing. And it kept going all of practice. Chase Claypool should have been thrown out of practice that day.
I agree.
He should have been thrown out.
Martellus was suspended like a week for doing something similar.
And they did nothing.
Well, and that's the entire lack of accountability with Chase Claypool, I think, was concerning. Yeah. I think the question is, did he learn from it? Because what we're missing in all this is that he is a first-time head coach.
Yes, that's right.
And I don't think he has the same level of stubbornness that Matt Nagy had. I think we're seeing a much better willingness to adapt, adjust on the fly, understand this was a defensive coordinator who was probably put in his first situation here where I have to manage an offensive diva here. How do I do this? And he probably didn't handle it well. But my point is if you're showing signs of progress and you're showing a willingness to get better, are you sure you want to fire that guy? That's all I'm saying.
Right,
are you sure you want to do it?
Because for all the things we just listed at the start of the season, not coming out prepared, starting 0-4, Chase Claypool, Allen Williams, Justin Fields calling out the coaches to a degree, all that adversity, and then they respond with 6-5. So while we can use those as a mark against him, the way they responded from those things is a mark for him.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Now, the last thing I want to say on this, we'll get to a break, and then we got to get Nick from Soldier Field.
We don't take breaks on the show. We'll get to a
This is Carman's
one of our
only pet peeve.
we do not take breaks.
What he hasn't figured out is I do it now as a bit to get him going.
He takes you take pee breaks.
It works. It really irritates me.
We
do not take breaks. We never leave you. We are with you the entire show. Don't go anywhere. There's no such thing as a break on this show. We are all together.
They're not tuning
I don't
out.
take a break when I take a pee. You keep the show going. Keep going.
Oh, that's true.
All right.
That's true.
Now, here's where I stand on this. I think the most legitimate argument for making a head coaching change has to do with this idea of whether or not he is viewed as a lame duck coach going into next year. Because we have seen this cycle way too many times. And this has to do with both what type of coaching changes are you making? Because I expect there to be some change. I think there probably has to be. Because I don't know how you justify everything on offense right now. But let's say hypothetically they make a change at offensive coordinator. Who are you bringing in? Who wants this job? Is it a desirable enough job if they're thinking the head coach might be fired a year from now?
Are you saying for an offensive coordinator or a player?
Offensive coordinator.
Would an offensive coordinator want to come here knowing that, hey, maybe this guy's gone and then I'll take his job?
Well, I think this gets into a whole separate conversation. My short answer is I think there's plenty of reasons to come take a job where you're going to have the number 1 overall pick and or can work with Justin Fields. You got Caleb Williams. You're in a great situation.
It's a fast track to a head coaching spot if you do your job right.
I would also look at the Bears situation and say chances are they're going to be a playoff team next year.
God, I hope so.
With the direction they're going.
They should be. They absolutely should be.
And so, objectively, I'm looking at this going, I don't necessarily – if you keep Flus now, I don't think he's getting fired next year, although it does set those expectations where if he fails again, then he probably does get fired.
That's why, like, some of these up-and-coming OCs I don't think would want to come here, but a guy like Frank Reich, and I know a lot of Bears fans are like, hell no, but he has a relationship with Eberflus, and that's how sometimes these things go. He's had head coaching experience. I could absolutely see that guy being on the table.
I agree with your logic that it would be a concern, but might not be a concern because of the situation. But
let me finish my point.
Yeah.
To me, the bigger thing has more to do with the quarterback. And this idea that if you do draft Caleb Williams and you have to fire the coach after 1 year, it's the same fucking mistake they've made so many times. And this would be the third time in a row with a first-round quarterback. And so, of all the things we've brought up here now in the last 20 minutes, I actually think most of the stuff of how this year's played out, the argument is sound to keep him. But my worry is if you're going to keep him, you better think this guy's the head coach for the next 5 years.
Right.
And you better be convinced of it. And if you're not convinced of it, if you're really planning on taking a rookie, you might want to think long and hard about starting it all over.
The carousel. Jay Cutler to John Fox. John Fox to Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky to Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy to Justin Fields. Justin Fields to Matt Eberflus. And then if there's a new quarterback, the carousel continues.
I would recommend that Ryan Poles listens to the logic there. It shouldn't be like he's earned year 3. It should be that I like this guy a lot and I see him being here for years to come because I think he is just that good and has been that much overlooked that he got his first head coaching job in his 50s. And even though he is a coachy, flusy, nerdy nerd, this is my guy. Like that's how he should be evaluating it. Not that he's earned year 3. Yeah. And I know we're doing this, but like to Kevin Kadek put in the comments, and I think it's a great point. Like the one thing we didn't mention. Look, man, you might have some of the most elite coaches of all time out there. Are you really passing on a chance for if Jim Harbaugh wants to come to the NFL or Mike Tomlin or Bill Belichick or whoever you want? You're passing on all those for this guy. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same thing with the quarterback. Justin Fields, we wouldn't be talking about moving on from him, but you have the number 1 overall pick, and there might be a generational talent. So it'd be really hard to move on from a guy who, after 3 years, who deserves to continue to grow with everything that's gone on here. But you might do it because you think this guy is the next biggest thing, and you're not going to pass. You're not going to have the same logic with the head coach. These guys are out here. You really think that the Flus is better than them? That is a big-time statement.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
Yeah.
We have 3 supers. We have a bunch of supers, but we have 3 that are specifically about Flus. I thought we should just rip through these real fast. Jason Stevens, $10. Aside from the defense getting better, a few more wins, and not completely losing the locker room through adversity, what can we point to that says Flus is a good coach? And he actually followed up just now. Out of all the teams who will be looking for head coaches this offseason, which one of those teams would likely hire Flus to be a head coach? That's a good point. Joe, $5. Nothing from 2022 counts against his resume. That team was purposefully terrible.
I agree.
True. That is true. And then Ravi, $1.99. Yes or no? Do you think Flus wins us a Super Bowl? And that's probably the biggest question of all.
Can you go back to that first one? Was that Jason?
Yeah, the $10 one.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me find that.
I love it. We're on. Our hair's on fire this morning.
Because I get it.
It's good.
I just want to point this out, though, and this is exactly my point. And
Credit to makers.
Good work. You
I
riled
think,
everyone up.
I think this speaks exactly to my point that some people just decided, like, week 4, I'm done with this guy, and
I
they're
did.
not willing to look
I
at
fired
this.
him.
That's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. Jason's allowed to do that here.
I'll
but I
apologize.
just want to read this again. Aside from the defense getting better, a few more wins for a team that had lost 14 in a row, by the way. They're 6-5 in their last 10 or 11. And not completely losing the locker room. I would actually argue I don't think he's lost the locker room at all through adversity. Extreme adversity, mind you. Try to put yourself back into, what was that, week 2 or week 3 when all that shit was going on?
Well, part
that
of the
was a lot.
That's adversity he
That's
created.
a lot is my point. That's a lot of reasons right there to keep him.
But he created a lot of that adversity by hiring those guys.
Right. He started the fire in the house
Yeah.
and then put the fire out and was like,
that's only a fair statement, Law, if he knew everything about Alan Williams' background and hired him anyway.
you're the head coach.
That's not.
It's his job to know his
You're
background.
the head coach.
It's his
Yeah,
job
but the
to-
Claypool thing, to your point, that was right in his face. So I think the Alan Williams
Ryan
point is fair,
Poles-
but the Claypool part is a mark against him for how he handled it.
Yeah, but Poles has got to eat that as far as, like, I should not have put that guy in your locker room. That's on me. That's all right.
Correct.
If I'm Ryan Poles,
That's
that's how
fair
I'm
too.
looking at
But
it.
he's been working with this guy forever. And, like, he obviously had no idea that there was ever something was going to come to the point that and then, oh, by the way, he completely fixed the defense after it happened.
Well,
And don't forget how much the secondary was hurt through those
The
first
entire
4.
Alan Williams thing to me
but
it was like a blessing in disguise.
I would just say this about that.
If anything, it's a bigger blunder that he didn't realize how much Alan Williams was holding back the defense.
I agree.
That's a bigger argument to me.
That's another excellent call. And I would also point to this. Flus is a golly gee Willikers, this guy, and so he is a Flus who lives in his Flus land, and it's like, to me, there's a little bit of an obliviousness to, like, the guy that's right next to you. You didn't know that this was going on with this dude. You've been around all this time because he just lives in his Flus little coach corner. I just don't. I think there's a little bit of an awkward and a slight offness to him as far as understanding human beings.
We all city like the mayor.